You say I make you nervous, a tragedy, I'm a beautiful
BTS news today, July 16th, 2025 at Hanamdong, Seoul. The morning sky was overcast, as if it mirrored the heavy silence hanging over a quiet room on the 4th floor of the HYBE building. No staff bustling about, no managers booting up laptops or preparing interview schedules like usual. Even the studio doors, where artists typically rehearse vocals and choreography, were shut tight, as if the whole world was holding its breath for one thing. The voice of someone who had chosen silence for far too long. And finally, that voice came. Jungkook, the golden magne of BTS, sat in front of the camera. No giant LED screens, no expensive studio lighting, just a single static camera and a wooden chair that looked far too humble for a global superstar. His hair hung low, covering part of his face, not styled for broadcast, not the look of an idol ready to sell albums, but the look of a human being finally ready to be himself. It's been 10 years, he said quietly. And today, I want to speak, not as a member of BTS, but as Jungkook. The whole world seemed to stop. The live stream, which had been announced with a single simple notification, was instantly flooded by millions of viewers. Even the Weverse servers experienced brief outages. But fans held on. Because that sentence, "I want to speak," came from someone who, for over a decade, had been known through his smile, his songs, and his perfect stage presence. Someone who had only ever shown his best side, never the scars behind it. "I'm tired," Jungkook said again. Tired of pretending to be strong. Tired of pretending to be happy all the time. Tired of being a product that has to keep shining. The voice on the screen didn't tremble. He didn't cry. But something in that tone made millions of armies grip their phones tighter. It wasn't dramatic weeping. It was a stillness too still, like the calm before a storm. For 10 years, the name Jungkook had been tied to words like perfect, hardworking, inspiring. He was known as an artist without flaw. His vocals were powerful, his movements elegant. He maintained his physique, polished his English, and launched a solo career that shook the world. But no one really knew what he felt when the lights went out and the applause stopped. "They say I'm a role model," he said. "But how can you be a role model when you don't even know who you are?" The camera didn't move. No edits. No background music. Just a pair of eyes finally refusing to look away from reality. "I started feeling empty," he whispered. "There were times when I lived only to perform. Wake up, train, record, stage, sleep 3 hours, wake up again. Everything ran like a machine, until I forgot what it meant to live as a regular human being." His words cut like a blade, not because they were painful, but because they were honest. Too honest. A rarity in the Korean entertainment world, which often prizes image and perfection above all else. No one interrupted during the stream. No staff member told him to stop. No background noise, no incoming notifications. As if the entire world gave space to this one person, who had spent his entire life entertaining others, to finally breathe freely. Jungkook spoke about his early debut days, about how he was still a teenager when he joined BTS, and how since then, he hadn't lived like an ordinary youth, but as a global icon. "I grew up in front of cameras," he said. "Every mistake magnified, every gesture scrutinized. Even when I had nothing to say, I was expected to say something." He described long nights when he asked himself, "Is this really what I want? Is fame worth the loss of privacy, of identity, of the chance to fail like a normal person? I'm scared," he admitted. "Not of losing fans, not of this career ending, but of continuing to lose myself." As the hour passed, the screen didn't change, but the atmosphere grew heavier. Even the sky outside the studio window seemed darker, as if listening to every word spilling from his lips. Jungkook began to talk about 2024, a year he called his turning point. The year of his wildly successful solo world tour. Yet, he said, it was also the year he felt the most hollow. "Every concert was grand," he said. "But backstage, I'd often sit alone and ask, why am I here? Who am I singing for? Do they love me? Or the image they've created of me?" Thousands of comments flooded the screen. "We love you, Jungkook. You're not a robot. You're human. It's okay to feel tired." But Jungkook didn't read them. He just stared ahead. "I know you love me," he said slowly. "But I want to love myself too. And all this time, I haven't." That statement hit like thunder. The idol known for confidence and brilliance admitted he hadn't loved himself all along. I kept trying to be the best version of what people wanted. But I started to wonder, what if I just want to be the real version of myself? Not the perfect one, not the strong one, not the one who always smiles, but someone who sometimes gets angry, confused, cries, or feels lost. A long pause. I want to be myself, he said at last. Not a product, not an icon, not someone else's dream, but a human named Jungkook. And with that, the stream ended. No goodbye, no closing music, just a black screen. But the echo of his words didn't stop. It began to ripple across social media, news platforms, and in the hearts of every fan who had only known the polished surface of Jungkook. That day, the world didn't lose a star. That day, the world finally met a person. And maybe from that day forward, for the first time, Jungkook could begin to live. Not as BTS's Magne, not as the face of thousands of brands, but as himself, fragile, honest, imperfect, and finally unafraid to speak. And no one knows where Jungkook's journey will go next. Will he stay in music, take a long break to heal, or find a new path that truly reflects who he is? What is certain is that this day became history, not for going viral, but for the raw courage that had long been locked away, finally finding its way home. Jungkook is no longer silent. He no longer hides from his own voice. And for everyone who watched that day, they knew one thing. Sometimes, the greatest bravery isn't standing on stage before millions, it's sitting alone in front of a camera and saying, truthfully, I want to be myself. 30 minutes after the stream ended, Jimin's phone rang. He had just finished a Pilates session at his small studio in Nanhayan. When he saw Jungkook's name on the screen, his chest tightened, not because the call was unusual, they often called each other, but because this time, Jimin knew something had changed. Something in Jungkook's world had broken, and couldn't go back to what it was. That he answered, his hands slightly trembling. Hyung. The voice was soft, like a whisper. I said everything. Jimin didn't respond right away. He walked to a corner of the room, away from everyone, and leaned against a cold white wall that contrasted the heat in his chest. He knew exactly what everything meant. He knew that the wall Jungkook had built up for years had finally collapsed. Are you sure? Jimin finally asked, voice barely audible. I'm sure, Jungkook replied without hesitation. Finally, elsewhere in the city, the fandom became a sea of emotion. Thousands of armies reposted the stream. Hashtags like hashtag Be Yourself Jungkook, hashtag Thank You Jungkook, and hashtag You Are Love trended in over 60 countries within 2 hours. Some cried while typing captions. Some silently wiped their makeup off after sobbing. Some finally confessed to the screen that they, too, had been pretending all along. Just like Jungkook. In New York, a 27-year-old army named Selena quit her finance job after watching the stream. I feel like I've been given permission to live as myself, she said in a TikTok post viewed over 3 million times. If Jungkook can be honest about who he is, why can't I? In Rio de Janeiro, a 16-year-old boy finally told his family he didn't want to be a doctor, as his father wished. He wanted to be a painter. He wanted to live, not just survive. All of this because of one stream. One sentence. I want to be myself. Meanwhile, behind HYB's closed doors, management sat in stunned silence. No one had been informed of Jungkook's livestream. There was no script, no PR strategy, no approval.
So but turning into stone. So save your judgment, 'cause